Where are you on the Pelicans? Do you think they should have done more to like be more aggressive to diversify the front court spot next to Zion, or even just add even more shooting? What did you think of just their decision to sit relatively pat during the offseason?
Yeah, honestly, I'm still pretty confident in what they look like in November and December. I wrote a couple of pieces at that time just saying like how incredible they looked both offensively. They were figuring out a system defensively which was very switch heavy, and they were just trying to limit limit points in the paint, but also being able to limit stuff on the perimeter. It just looked very, very good. And also Zion, I think it just comes down to health with these guys. And I hate that that is the answer. I hate that I'm giving you that cop out answer of saying this is just a health thing with these guys. But I think the amount of games Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and Zion Williamson have played are in the single digits, like together. And I just, that's ridiculous to me. That's like a ludicrous stat. That doesn't make a lot of sense when you hear it out loud to yourself. So I think that's where I would go. It's like, can this team stay healthy? Because if they can, they are a surefire top 4, top 3 seed in the Western Conference next season. And they looked so good offensively built around Zion that I kind of trust it so much. I also believe in the development of their younger guys. I'm a huge Trey Murphy fan. I think he has, like we were talking about MIP with Precious. I think he's a pretty good pick for MIP for 2024 if you're being, a little fringy with your pick, if you want to say. But I like Trey just in general, just because he has shown an ability to create a shot a little bit more. He's an incredible shooter off the ball, obviously. And he's just like a long, rangy defender that works well in their system. I like Trey a lot. I think he can be their next guy,
I'm with you on Trey. I would wonder whether he'll get like the touches to explore the ball skills necessary, but
Yeah.
it's not even just his shooting when he's not, dominating. That's like the range that he has on his shooting. It's just like you're going to stretch defenses paper thin. And so I'm with you on everything you said, where I still would have liked to have seen them been a little bit more aggressive to just try and open up the floor. And I think we're at the point where you might have to start planning around Zion's going to miss 30 games a year or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it's so tough because he's 23 and they were like the best team in the West at one point last year. And so you believe in the theory of this team. It's just so tough to imagine them. I mean, even looking at some of the time that Brandon Ingram has missed, you now have to factor in like the CJ McCollum learning curve. They might aging curve, excuse me. And then you're all of a sudden like, I don't love Jonas Valanciunas is a good player, but like I don't know if he's gonna close as part of your best lineups. And then like you're gonna reach like he's hitting free agency next year. And so it's like, so who's your big man there? Like it's not Cody Zeller isn't going to be like the solution long term. So I would have liked to have seen them been more aggressive, but they were so good when fully healthy that I was actually surprised. I think I saw some people name them as like the biggest losers of the offseason. And I'm just like, I can't get there because this team, if things just break even 75% right, where if we said Zion played in 57 games right now or 61, like I might be like, well, New Orleans is probably going to be like in the top 4 of the Western Conference. And a big part of that you mentioned too is not just Trey Murphy. The defense is just like we saw it in not even just last season, but Willie Green's first year. There's like a system in place, and they got really good in transition the year, not last year, but the previous year. They were a little bit worse last season. You mentioned the switching scheme worked for them in the half court. They're really good at ending possessions. I think Zion even improved on that end of the floor when you watch him a lot last year compared to years past. I remain bullish on their future, but I don't think it's unfair. It's not, I'm with you when it comes to health because Zion has missed like 2/3 of his career games. So it's not a cop out. That's a real thing. That's a real concern.
It's also like, how do you reconcile that when you look at just their future and what they look like next season, the year beyond that? Like, how are you supposed to assess this team when it's constantly like, oh, by the way, injury,
Right. I don't know how you're supposed to. And like they were trying to make some assessments because you go out and make the CJ McCollum trade. Yeah. And so and we know like that they kind of poked around like the Malik Beasley sweepstakes at the last trade deadline. So I think it makes sense, I think, to run it back. And then if you need to make more wholesale decisions, even at midseason, because there has to be a bit of urgency. Just Zion is sort of this physical singularity. We don't know how long his prime window is going to last if he remains healthy. And so I do think you need to be more urgent. And I think there are real flaws on this team, but I'm also just like, what someone needs to point me to the move that they were supposed to make here. Right. And like, I'm not even a big fan of teams ducking the tax, but I'm like, what was the move that's going to be worth them spending more, taking on money in a trade? And I can't get there. And so I think like, as is, this is maybe a fringe contender if they stay healthy, if not an outright contender.
Yeah, some people brought up the idea of Dame, and then I know at the draft there was the idea of trading Zion for Scoot and kind of resetting that way. I just don't see those being viable options. Maybe you could sell me on the Dame idea if CJ gets rerouted to a third team, but I don't know. I just don't see that.
I like the Dame idea, and it would like it's just hard to build. Like Dyson Daniels is gone, and I really
Yeah,
like Dyson Daniels. If he
yeah,
can like hit like a standstill jumper ever, he's
yeah,
gonna be really good. But like you can't trade Herb right now, and he's so good. I just feel like he improved his shooting as the season went on, but it was like on like sub 2 attempts per game. It's like I need to see more volume out of him because I just
yeah.
wonder what he'll look like in longer playoff settings. But that's like I actually like Dame in New Orleans. If you find a third team for CJ and you're willing to unload the picks, they're just clearly a team that doesn't want to make that move, and I get it. I will say I was aboard. I became so high on Scoot that if you were going to flip Zion for Scoot, I think I was in the camp. I don't remember what I said, but if I was New Orleans and it was there, I probably would have done it.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it, but I'm pretty high on Scoot too, and I would at least entertain the idea. I love what Zion does, and like every time I think of trading Zion for Scoot, I think of the November and December Zion that we had last season, and I'm like, I don't know, man, that's an MVP candidate right there. Like, how do
Right.
you trade that for a guy that you don't know? Even though, there are some assurances when seeing a guy like Scoot and what he can be in the future, but still, like Zion is an MVP candidate. How are we going to move on from this guy? It feels like a tough pill to swallow,
In a
front
vacuum, you
office
can't.
wise.
And I
Yeah,
think even David Griffin said that the talks they had about number 3 never involved Zion. Who knows
right.
how true that is, but they clearly are thinking the way you're thinking.